What we're looking at in this video is high-level code, machine code, and translators. And code, which is what makes the computer do what it does, if we've got high-level code, we must have a high-level language. And an example of some code written in high language might look like this. So the sort of languages which we're talking about would be VB, JavaScript, which is what the code is just above here, C#, Java, Delphi, and so on. Many different languages. And these are kind of human readable. The idea is that humans can read and write these close to how they speak in their native English. And so what we're saying here is make me up a variable which will be called A and assign the value 5 to it. Assign the value 10 to B, add the two together and call it total, and then put the total is and that total which we just made onto the HTML document in this case because it's JavaScript. So very human readable. So easy to read, easy to edit, and then we have underneath it another type of language which is much closer to what the processor does, and this is known as assembly language. And here's an example of some assembly here. So this is saying much more complicated things, well, simple to the computer, complicated to humans. Like here, it's moving from one register EBP to another register called ESP. Here, it's pushing something onto the register EBP, or it's comparing two registers here, and then it's jumping depending on what the result was, and then it's popping something off of the EBP register off of a stack. Now, this is more complicated language. It bears no relationship to what humans really understand, and you've got to understand quite a lot of the assembly language, and it's difficult to program. This language here is for one processor. So one type of processor will have its own instruction set, its own registers, its own configuration, and you will program your assembly language with one processor in mind only. Whereas with a high-level language, I can use that on any processor. It could be that I run this code. It'll be the same code which I run on a tablet, on a phone, on a PC, whichever it is, that code will be the same. This assembly language will be very different for every single processor. What that gets translated down to is something known as machine code, which is the lowest level. And this is exactly this here, this machine code is exactly what will be on some RAM. Just bear in mind these three programs don't correspond, they're not identical programs. It's just giving you an example. And so this machine code here, what I've got some opcodes here, the operation codes, and I've got the data here. Here I've got mnemonics, which are easy to understand along with the data and registers. And so the machine code is exactly what the processor uses. And there is a direct translation between this assembly language and machine code. So what we have is we have lots of different languages. And just like in normal languages like English or French or German, if we want to go from one language to another language, we will employ someone to translate those languages. So in exactly the same way, we can translate computer languages. And so if we want to go from a high-level language to an assembly language, then we will make use of a translator. And if we want to go from assembly language to machine code, we will make use of a translator. And so translators are the way which we can get from a high-level language to an assembly language and to a machine code.